Welcome to the Hue-Man Experience.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to another new episode of the Hue-Man Experience. I am your friend, Hue-Man. As always, it's a pleasure to have you here with me. Welcome to my home. Welcome to Earth. Isn't it fun? Isn't it fun? Today is Easter Sunday. What a day. What a day. I got to have my first 20-mile bike ride in 6 months or something since we've been buried under the ice here. And boy, oh boy, did it feel good to be back on those country roads, just flowing in the breeze and getting blown by the wind, baby. Oh, well, it is my pleasure to present to you a beautiful episode of the Hue-Man Experience podcast today with my guest, Joanna Sullivan. Joanna runs a website called Bring Harmony Home. You can find a link down in the description and on the original Substack post. And Joanna is one of my favoriteest people on this earth. I've known her for a long time now. We have a very good mutual friend, Dirt Rogers. Shout out, Dirt. Love you. And he'll come up a couple times in the show. And, you know, Joanna and I just had an absolutely magical conversation together. And Joanna, thank you for coming on the show and for blessing us with your presence. Joanna is just a fantastic woman, as you'll see for yourself. And our conversation ended up centering very heavily around lessons in letting go. That was what I walked away from the experience with. And I thank you, Joanna, for giving me the opportunity at one point to express some things that came up, especially about my grandmother, my own brother, and, things that I normally wouldn't share unprompted. And I really kind of needed that. And so thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit more than I normally try to about myself on a show that I would like to be about you, because you are my special guest. So yes, without further ado, I will let our conversation speak for itself. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for participating in my human experience with me. This is my conversation with Joanna Sullivan. Enjoy. Joanna Sullivan, welcome to the Hue-Man Experience. How are you, and what is going on in your world today?
Hey, Sean. Thanks for having me. I'm doing pretty good, I gotta say. It's hot down here in the Caribbean. It's windy and hot. We have a saying here in living in the Riviera Maya, and it says, Febrero loco y marzo más un poco. So it's crazy February and a little bit more in March. So this is the little bit more. And the wind is sort of ripping through, and, things that here have to be like fastened down. Otherwise they blow away. We just got back from running some errands, and there was an easy up that had just blown into the street, and the cops just kind of drive around it and keep going. And like pieces of like corrugated metal roof are just like ripped off the top of the house, or it's the gate. We don't know. It could be the gate, but it's a little bit of organized chaos here in Mexico. So just learning how to swim with the rhythms.
Yeah, I mean, we've known each other for a really long time, and we originally knew each other through living in a major city, San Francisco, and now you live in the jungle in Mexico. And I know we've talked in the past that there's big differences between the two. Like, can you kind of talk about your experience of having lived in a place like San Francisco and moving to the jungle? Like, what is that like? It sounds pretty exciting from what you just said.
Yeah. So I was in San Francisco for 10 years, and there were a lot of things that I really liked about living in the city. And I guess you get kind of used to a lot of like things being done for you. And the way that I see it now is that everything that I want done, I have to do myself. Pretty much that's the biggest difference since moving down here. If you want work done on the house, you have to go get the materials yourself. You have to go find the person that's going to do it. You have to get different people to come and give you different quotes. There's no like one-stop shop place to get everything done. And so things take a lot longer. And I've used the analogy, kind of the golden cage for the city, where it's like, you're in the zoo, or maybe you're a lion and you're in the zoo, but like you get your meal delivered to you on a platter. You get your mane beautifully cared for and your nails beautifully filed. And then they take you out of the zoo and put you in the jungle. And then all of a sudden, like nobody's delivering nothing to you. If you want food, you better go out and get it. You can have your hair, but it will probably not look like the way it did in the city. I look back at the pictures. I'm like, wow, my clothes were so clean. Everything was so like beautiful, like golden. And I definitely don't feel so organized or catered to here. But there's a sense of relief that comes from knowing that, I'm going to get it done and relying kind of more on my own wits.
That really speaks to me in my experience of having moved out of the city to a place like South Dakota. I'm close to a couple different major cities, but I have to drive 60 miles to go get certain things that are inaccessible to me here. I mean, you pay for a delivery service like the big one that everyone knows, and you get the Prime option or whatever, and it still takes a week to get a book delivered to your house, let alone the food. I really resonate with that because I've had to really learn how to cook in a completely different level than I ever knew how to before. Because if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. And I
Yep.
really, really resonate with that. That's
Yeah, there's a certain sort of at first panic. Like when I first moved down here, it was almost like, what have I done? Because San Francisco is so beautiful. I mean, you have all the organic food you could possibly, want or desire. Anything that you want or need, you can have it almost immediately. All the services, the live music, the art. I mean, it's all there at your fingertips. But you pay. I mean, not just even in money, but you pay in energy. It's exhausting. Now when I go to big cities, I'm like, I'm utterly inundated by the sounds, the smells, the sights, just the access to everything. It's like everything all at once available. It's overwhelming now. And I mean, I was just wondering the other day, like, how long do you have to be kind of out in the jungle before you can't ever go back to civilization? Like, at what point do you become like uncivilizable again?
ungovernable.
Yeah.
I love that. What you said too about the golden cage. It makes me feel like this section of our lives that we both lived in San Francisco had access to everything at any time you want. Oh, I don't feel like cooking today. I'll just push a button on my phone and get $50 worth of food, which is actually just like 2 dishes. And then I'll pay the driver $10 to come drop it off to me and then just make more money later. And there is a completely different mindset and energy, like you had said, that comes with self-reliance. And that gilded cage, it feels so artificial now. And so when you're talking about living in the jungle, I live in a small town, but I think the same thing. Like, I'm preparing to drive to California. I've been really missing my friends and my people and my family, and I get to go spend time with my family in their house for the first time since COVID happened and everything. And so I'm really looking forward to it, but I'm also kind of like mentally preparing myself now, like 3 months out, so that I can re-enter a city, because it feels jarring to go back to a place where all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, there's cars everywhere. There's people everywhere. And you get used to living a little closer to nature, a little less population density, and everything feels different. But I like it. I like getting dirty. I like having dirt under my fingernails because I've been doing Dakota stuff. And you know what you said about being clean versus being in the jungle. I kind of like that, don't you?
You know, I think when you said the piece about money, that really resonated with me because it was a financial decision to move down to Mexico. A lot of people are doing it now, which, you know, for better, for worse. You know, the cost of living is sometimes a fifth of what I would pay, at least half of what I would pay. But generally, my bills went down to 20% of what I was paying before.
Wow.
So, so you don't, there's not this pressure to make ends meet all the time and to be on the hamster wheel. And when I work, I get to do things that I love. And recently I'm a birth doula, and I also do authentic relating circles. So I get to really, that's a practice where I get to really slow down and get present with what's happening in my body, what's happening with the person that I'm circling. And I don't feel that it's the same in the city, that in touchness with human nature, with being able to like pinpoint like vulnerable moments, like what was that right there? Like things zoom by, you know, when you're in such a rush to make ends meet and to fill all of your spaces with everything humanly imaginable that's all available at your fingertips. So I consume less, I spend less, and yeah, really that slowing down is more cost effective, and I feel like my life is getting longer because my breath is getting longer. My moments are filled with more like inquisitiveness rather than like projecting like, okay, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? What do I have to pay next? What do I have to earn next?
Yeah, if you're checking your phone during the middle of a circle, maybe, just maybe, that's not the point.
Yeah. Yeah. And circling has given me the gift of really giving me permission to access that inner landscape, which I think is very inconvenient when everybody's on a time schedule. There really isn't a lot of time to like, oh, but that impacted me. Like I had an impact right there. It's like, okay, great, but I gotta go. So like,
You're right.
can we impact this later or unpack this, you know, and it later never comes. And so it's given me a gift of being more present in my relationships. And it's also given me the ability to really think about what I want and what I need, and permission to create space for that in my life.
So can you tell us what is circling?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, no, I can't tell
Do
you
your
what
best.
But circling is a relatefulness practice. So generally in most conversations, there's me and there's you, and then there's the thing that we're talking about. And what circling does is it takes that thing that we're talking about and moves it to actually what's happening between me and you. And that's the subject of really the circle. The circles can be one person being the kind of focus of the participant's attention. And then someone like me, I would facilitate the circle. So start by, you know, asking if there's something they want to focus on, or if it could just be organic in the moment. And then we'll go into what's coming up for them and looking for moments where you notice a shift, or you feel something really landed or something really struck a chord, and then you dive kind of into that. What was that right there? Like when you like shrugged and looked off to the side, like what happened there? And then people are like, oh, I did do that, didn't I? Okay. And it helps people to get into their body while being present with someone else. So a lot of times in meditation, we sit with our eyes closed and we scan the inner landscape using our breath, which is beautiful. But try doing that while you're sitting in front of somebody or in a group of people. Being present with what's happening inside while being present with what's happening for you. And so it can be a really transformative experience, not just for the person being circled, but oftentimes the participants get sidecar circled, secondhand circled as a result, because almost always, I'll just say always, we are all experiencing the same thing. We just have different ways of talking about it. And if ever there's a disagreement or no, I disagree, instead of getting, brushing past it or getting, trying to get as quickly through the disagreement as possible, we really slow down and sink our teeth into that. Like, oh, that's really interesting. You feel this way. I never thought of it that way. Or can you tell me more about that? And it creates a dynamic that's welcoming, that's inclusive, that's personal and vulnerable. And you end up getting to know people in the course of a 40-minute or 50-minute circle. You end up feeling like you've known people for years because they've been given permission to really be themselves. There's no other person I'd rather you be than yourself, and permission for me to be myself, which, it's taken me how many years to get here.
Nothing rubs people who are hurting and trying to learn how to be themselves harder than someone who is authentically being themselves. And to have an environment where everyone is there because they want that is a really, really good thing. And perhaps that came out sounding in a little negative unintentionally, because what I really mean to say is that when you are shining very brightly, other people who don't feel themselves shining tend to push that away. At least that's been my recent experience with some people that I truly care about. And I've had to learn with my own expanding awareness, like I hear you talking about awareness essentially. And I've had to learn that, like, it's okay. There are other people out there that do want to go to that level with you. And so you don't have to try to convince people who don't to come to that level with you. And so that what you're describing and your practice of circling sounds incredibly wonderful to me. I mean, that is a way for us who are essentially the same thing, the soul, the heart, consciousness, whatever, to empower ourselves through our differences, because we're all different right now in appearance, in thinking, in perspective, for a reason. And I love what you said about, paraphrasing, helping each other see into our blind spots by saying, like, oh, what was that? What was that? And that increasing the level of awareness that we have of ourselves helps us to increase our level of awareness of the all, the everything. And so that sounds like incredibly powerful. How often do you get to do that? Do you have like a monthly meeting, or is it weekly? How does that work?
So right now I have a weekly group that we meet, and just something that you said, really, it shifted. I just felt my whole body relax when you said empower us in our differences, because I read recently, I think this is Gabor Mate who says this, that the opposite of of sobriety, or the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. And that's,
Mm.
you know, when you really take a moment to think about that, you know, and all of us are addicted to all of it, right? To our phones, to news, to the entertainment, to substances, to sugar. That one's for
I'm known to dabble in the sugars.
Woohoo! Yeah, I mean, whatever can kind of take you out of this moment and take you to a fairy tale land, you know, sex, and, pizzazz, and celebrity gossip, or whatever, will take you away from your moments and off into a faraway land. And where the riches actually lie is here in this moment, or so they say, you know. But this moment is fleeting. You can't bottle it up. You can't mass produce this present moment. You can't take it with you. You have to let it go. And you know, that's one of the biggest sort of human jokes, is that, like, you have to let all of this go, all of it. There's no taking any of this with you. And that's uncomfortable as heck. Like, you'd try getting comfortable with that. Like, I like this stuff. I like these headphones. You know, I like this computer. I don't want to let it go. But ultimately, that's the way that things will go, is there's an end to everything. So yeah, nurturing present moment and nurturing stillness. It's not sexy. It's not consumable, right? You can't munch on it. You just have to let it flow through you. And when you get good at circling, which I've only been doing it 2 years, I recommend, if anyone's interested in learning more about this, checking out Guy Sengstock and the Circling Institute, because we call him Guyawaska, because he is next level about really sinking his teeth into the moment and just being like, huh, what was that right there? Because you said you were sad about something, but then you laughed. So what does that mean? You know? And it's like, wow, we would have missed that moment. But in that moment, then all of a sudden there's a treasure trove of information that all of a sudden brings us all to a sense of humanity and humanness, that, yeah, I mean, it's like Aristotle kind of this stuff right there. You're in the presence of, like, really deep presence. I mean, really deep stillness, because we're not trying to get away from these feelings. We're actually trying to sink into them.
Yeah. Nothing can teach you better than the mirror can, right? And to serve as a mirror for another, like, I see myself in your eyes, and I hope you see yourself in mine. There are aspects of you and me, and potentially aspects of me and you. And the circling, I've never thought of it like that. I didn't know what it was. And so I'm fascinated by this, because I'm also kind of obsessed with this, but it's just me and my dog, who's wherever he is right now in the house. And, you know, he doesn't speak with words to me. We just speak in energy to each other. And I feel like I circle with him all the time, because he brings up these things within me where all of a sudden, especially after the brutality of this winter, I've never gone through anything quite like this in my life. I was, for a period of time, I lost a couple of men that were really important to me in my life. They passed on. And I was like, how do I get what I need? Am I ever going to get what I need? While simultaneously, this sweet little animal was just like, I need things from you right now. Right now. Give me everything. And for a period of time, I was like, oh, how do I give anyone anything? How do I serve you? Oh, wait, you're just showing me right now. You're just showing me this this explosive, like, I need, but I'm the one that has the power to get what I need through the expanding awareness. And I signed up to take care of you. So when I get upset that I'm being poked and prodded, it's really just things in my own mind that are already there that are upsetting me. And I can easily project it onto you, or I could just let go of whatever those things are. And what you said before really rang my bell about letting go. I feel like we learn how to let go in life because at the end of life, we have to let go of our body. And when you go to sleep at night, your body goes to sleep, but your consciousness continues experiencing. You go into dream world and you ride unicorns and carry flaming swords and do wild things, right? Or maybe you're just working another day in the life of your human life in your work, in your sleep. That used to happen to me when I worked in retail. But it's pretty fascinating because I do have to feel like at the end of it all of this means something, and that I will, just like everyone else, come to a crux where it's like, that Earth game was pretty fun. I really love coffee. That's my biggest thing. I tried to recently let go of coffee and went like a couple of weeks without it, but then just a little bit of decaf, and had these moments where I was like, oh, I don't even want to let go of that. I love it. And so I'm still drinking coffee and I'm loving every moment of it. But at the end of my life, I think about things like, playing the guitar, drinking coffee. How do I let go of those things? And I don't know yet, but I'm sure I'll get there. Or perhaps maybe I'll come back and just be a barista in the next life. I don't know. But
yeah, I had just had a meta moment when you were talking about taking care of somebody else's needs, because I'm currently about 5 months pregnant.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. And yeah, there are moments where already I don't own this body. Like there are moments that like I just read recently that the metabolism of a pregnant person is 2.2 times that of a normal resting metabolism, and a marathon runner is 2.5.
Holy
so
cow.
You're almost up there with running marathons, and all I'm doing is whatever, sweeping or sitting at my computer. So already there are things that I really have no control of. Like if I don't eat enough calories, last night I skipped lunch yesterday because I was just too busy, and then he like literally like punching me from the inside, like, hey, go put some more calories in your body. But as time goes on, and obviously the baby comes out, and then, they individuate. So they separate from me and then start to learn to become their own person through me. Obviously I imprint onto them my wills and desires and schedules, and even they cry in the same vocal patterns as their mothers, the voice of their caretakers. So they really just become a little version of me, except they're totally their own person. And that's the biggest thing, like, how do I be me and let them be them while still filling their needs and filling my needs, and letting them eventually make mistakes and, fall and get back up and, goof and mess up and poop their pants, and without it being a personal affront on like, oh, it doesn't mean that I pooped my pants, they did, but it's
but who's got to clean it.
Yeah, it's something that you eventually have to, again, let go. And I was talking, the midwife was over here last night, and we got to listen to the heartbeat. And even already the baby doesn't want the heartbeat heard. Like the baby will move when the stethoscope comes on. Like
That's
when,
amazing.
When my partner puts his hand on my belly, I can feel the baby like, get out of here.
She's giving him a high five.
Maybe. It feels more like a high five.
Karate chop.
So already, even though they are only 21 weeks of gestation, they already know what they like and don't like. They already don't want to feel uncomfortable. They crave regularity, comfort. And, it's the kind of thing where I can't control it. I have no control over what that little thing does, really, honestly. Like, it's completely autonomous. It's outside of my control, and it's growing inside of my body. So yeah, there's like a real sainthood to motherhood, to motherhood, where I think it's been portrayed as like a martyrdom for a very long time. My friend was just asking me the other day, you sacrifice everything. You sacrifice your body, your comfort, your time for 20 years. And how do you not expect anything back from them? Or how do you not, get frustrated or angry with them for even existing? Talking about her relationship with her mom. And, I thought that was interesting because I don't feel that way yet. And maybe I will. But to me, I feel that I invited this, that I asked them to come, that this is something I wanted. I wanted them to be here. And now they are. However that works, let's not even get into conception. Well, I mean, I have an idea of how it works, but it's pretty miraculous how that, the whole journey of conception even happens. And then a little being comes out, and rather than like martyrdom, where I feel like, I do all this for you, you should be grateful. It's like, I get to have this experience of motherhood for really short time. I mean, up to like 10 years old or 12 years old, they're pretty self-regulated, they should be, at least by that point. They could do a lot at that stage. So, the next decade, I get to experience life as giving, as generosity, as, how can I be of service to this little one who will then take everything that I give them and either, throw it all to hell or integrate it and, go on to live a healthy life. And yeah, so, I was trying to, put this into words to the midwife who has 8 children and has been delivering babies in the jungle for 25 years. And she's like, yeah, well, you have no control over what they do. And that's how it'll be for the rest of the life. You got to wave goodbye to them, watch them go out the door. And you don't know if they're ever going to come back, And that was like a whoosh. Like, and this is like the ultimate test, right? Of letting go is, you have a pet, and I have a dog. My dog will be around with me for maybe another 10, 12 years. And then that's it. My dog is named River, and all rivers go to the ocean. That was kind of the point of his name, is that every day he'll be different. And then one day he will join back up with the river of all energy, wherever we come from. We come from the ocean, we return to the ocean, right?
Rivers are pretty wise too, because if you think about how many places they are in at once, and they're always moving, they're always flowing, and they're always shaping the environment that they're in. And I have some really great memories of spending time with you and River, driving up to Oregon to go see Old Dirt. And River has always been a special dog in my heart. And my dog, Juice, totally reminds me of him in so many ways. Those those eyes are so powerful, and River has those like turquoise, almost icy looking eyes that he just looks at you almost like a shark or something, and you just see this life force in those eyes, and he's a special dog. So I'm very
Yeah.
glad that that you and him found each other, because I know how much he means to you. I am
Yeah,
curious. Oh,
it was
sorry.
it was a big decision because I had just lost my mom, and I lost my dad 10 years before that. So both of my parents had passed away. And to get an animal that you know is going to pass away, you don't know, that your parents are going to pass away, but you don't sort of plan for it. You don't plan for your child to pass away, for example. But I've sort of had to kind of, as like a defense or, self-protective mechanism, I've had to be like, okay, I know that this dog will pass away in my lifetime. And so I've like tried to build that into my experience. So my human experience.
I've had the same realizations, not through my parents, but through my dog Tucker, who I lost, was, as you know, a huge part of my world. And
Yeah.
on those days that we're feeling really tough with the juice man, it started to bring that up in me. And that was one of the things that really shifted my mindset towards this animal that is way different than the old experience that I had. And it was, I'm going to lose you, and I know I'm going to lose you. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be the one to go first. I'm pretty sure it's going to be you. And oh my God, that changes the landscape of everything. And so that's a incredibly powerful realization. And I have to thank you, because I know through your experience, I learned, and Dirt as well, having lost very important pillars in their lives. My whole life is different now, because when we first met each other, I used to tell you how I had no relationship with my family, my mom and my dad in their own right. And just through listening to you two talk, especially you, it gave me the confidence and helped me face the fear of learning how to forgive the people who gave me everything, while I still had in my head that it wasn't enough. And my whole life is different now because I have them back in it. And so I thank you for the gift that you gave me, whether you knew it or not. And I'm sensing it was probably, you always know, Joanna.
No, shout out to Dirt Rogers, because yeah, he's helped me out so much in his wise ways and kind of grumpy curmudgeon-y ways.
Uncle Dirt. We love you, buddy.
We love you so much. He helped me out recently. I just got really, I'm sort of estranged from my sister, and I know you also have experienced that with your brother. And well, not even sort of, you are. And so I reached out to him to tell him what was going on. And his advice was really short, as it usually is, few words. He said, just say less. Just say as less as possible. Few sentences, because I was fuming. My sister is dating a drug addict, and who knows, maybe she herself is using, and there's nothing I could do. And she lives right outside of Baltimore. And so, she's kind of chosen that life for herself, right? She's chosen the way of, how do I say this nicely? The way of kind of a downward trajectory. I mean, he's in and out of jail. He's getting arrested. He's doing all sorts of unsavory behavior. And all of our family heirlooms, all of my mother's jewelry got robbed out of her house. I don't know if it was him, but it's gone. So, I was just coming to terms with this, and it was right around the anniversary of my mom passing away last week. And yeah, he reminded me, he's like, well, yeah, look, Sean has had to sort of let his brother go and trust that, you're going to make your life decisions, and I love you, but I can't be involved, and I'm going to love you from over here and you're over there. And I have to let you be you. And it is one of the hardest things to do, is to let people be themselves, especially when you're like me and you're so sure that you know better than them. Like, I am so sure that I know that that is not the way.
Yeah.
But it's really kicked me in the ass in my relationship with her over the years of trying to be like, why don't you try eating organic and intermittent fasting? And it's like, she's like, screw you, you know, like, you don't know what's best for me. And I'm like, oh, trust me, I do. But I don't, you know, I don't. And it's her life, and you've got to let them go and let them be who they're going to be, live out the life that they're going to live out, even if it takes their life, and all of your family possessions along with them. You know, it's sort of one of the greatest challenges for me has been this relationship with my sister, and just relationships in general. Just trusting others became a lot easier when I started trusting myself.
Gong. I wholeheartedly agree. And I'm glad to be able to relate to you on this level because, yes, my brother is a recidivist drug addict who has many different drugs of choice. You know, when he gets out of jail and goes through rehab, I think we're on number 10. He's back in
Oh,
jail now. So I had a few conversations with him until he got all the phone numbers he needed. And now he's not calling me. He's calling everybody else because he knows where he's not going to get the money that he's looking for, at least for now. But what I do give him is my unconditional love. And the way that I've learned how to do that is by removing the stories that I associate with him of all the times and all the things of the fact that he used my name as an alias. And
mm,
now every time he goes to jail, like right now, I can go online and look up that I'm incarcerated in California right now on paper because of that.
mm,
And so when he calls and he's like, I need this from you. And I'm just like, I love you, brother. I just was excited that you were calling me. I thought maybe you just wanted to talk to your brother because for the last 7 months, I was wondering if you were alive or dead. And you didn't call. You were busy, and I respect that. But maybe we could just have a conversation and be brothers
mm,
because that's what I miss the most is being
mm,
able to just call my brother and say one of our inside jokes or whatever it might be. But I don't get to have that anymore. And so, he said to
mm.
me recently, what did he say? He said, I know you probably freak out when I call, but I'm really glad you answered the phone. And I was like, dude, freak out. I freak out with joy because I get to talk to my brother. Do you know how good that makes me feel? But for a long time, all I had was resentment because it was like what you had said, like, I know better for you than you. And everything changed the day that I said, you know what, bro? I respect you because I think you're the hardest working man in Silicon Valley. No matter what, even without money, you always get your drugs. You always have them. And to me, that means you work really hard to make that happen. And maybe if you could ever focus that energy on something productive rather than destructive, you could have everything in the world. You could be rivaling the top CEOs in the world with that type of drive. And his response was, thank you for saying that. No one acknowledges how hard I work. And that was just this like moment where I was like, this is not about me. It never was about me. It's about just loving you because we're built into each other's lives for a reason, like links of a chain, as you're showing right now. And I realized too that without him as a teacher, I don't think I would be who I am. I don't think I would be doing this show. I don't think I would be capable of raising my sweet young pup alone without any help from anyone. And that's just a dog. I aspire to have children too one day. So, I thank him and I love him so much. And I hear the pain in his voice. but I also recognize that the only thing I can do is lead by example. And it sounds like we're really on the same wavelength with that. Like, the people who don't give us the most valuable experience of all, at least in my opinion. What do you think?
Say it again.
The people who don't give us what we want, that was a Freudian slip, I guess. The people who don't give us what we want are teachers of one of the most valuable experiences that we could possibly have. I mean, the whole theme of this discussion has become letting go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not through the easy times that you grow and learn. I'll tell you that. Like, nothing easy that's ever happened to me has really shaped the core of who I am. Like, I am who I am because I have been in the darkest pits of despair. And while nobody wants to go there, and you really also find out who your friends are when you are down there. Because it's not a fun topic of conversation, right? Death, darkness, disease, addiction, crime, jail, cancer, all of it. People will do anything to avoid talking about these topics.
Yeah.
But this is what shapes who we are, is these moments, these dark nights where it's like, I won't get through my dark nights on my own without knowing that there is the other side, right? There is the lightness, there is the peace on the other side of the rainbow. But you can't get there without, there's no way out. There's only through. And so in moments like that, really, you only have your closest friends that really can sit in the discomfort with you. Like, can you come sit in the shit with me? And there are a few people that I know that will come and sit in the shit with me. And it's uncomfortable and it's awkward, and it puts us in face to face with our own mortality, and then, once it passes, you gained the most precious piece of insight, which is that this too shall pass, that none of this is permanent, and that love is, it sounds so cliche. I always kind of feel like the biggest hippie. I'm sitting here in my house in Tulum talking about how love is the answer. But no, that's the only thing that lasts, after you die. Both of my parents have passed away. They left some nice things, obviously they left behind some nice things, but the only real true thing that lives on in me is their love. And that lives on every day, every breath, every word, every beautiful flower that I see, or moment of appreciation that I have for the ocean or a seashell. That's their love, and it's still alive. And so in that way, they're not gone. And that actually, what happens when you die, and this is my theory, is that the energy actually gets reabsorbed. And so mostly into the people that are closest to you, but into a little bit of everybody. It just gets sprinkled over everything, and reanimates, like after winter, right? You start to see the reanimation of life. And that didn't just happen because nothing lived before it. Something lived before it and died before it, so that can be born again. And it's also sounding kind of biblical with Easter coming up here, but these proverbs, they're not, there's like grains of truth in all of this, is that we only get to know ourselves through the death and destruction cycle and rebirth.
Oh yeah. I mean, I talked to my last guest about, I asked him how many times he had died within his life to become who he is. And the forest, the jungle, what a perfect representation of that, because as the seasons cycle, the leaves fall down and break down and feed the soil, and then that's what makes the soil more healthy, basically. And then that is what springs new life in the next year. It's the Erebus, the snake eating its own tail, the death feeding life, feeding death, feeding life, and whatever they call it, the cosmic wheel. There's so many different names and symbols to speak about the cycle that we're all a part of. And I do find trees fascinating, especially because their one day is a whole year, in that, like, in the springtime, they wake up and spring to life just like we do every single morning. And then in the wintertime, they go back to sleep just like we do at night. And so, like, every day dies for us in a different way than it does for a tree. But, you said a couple things about your appreciation for life and how it was formed through learning hard things in hard ways. And that deeply resonates with me. And I'm curious if your work as a birth doula has something to do, or everything to do, with your ability to recognize that, because you're a person who's been present for, you tell us, how many babies have you helped bring into this world, and how that experience informs and just makes you who you are, because that's something that not everyone gets to be a part of.
Right. And it's so unfortunate that birth happens behind closed doors, just like death happens behind closed doors. We shutter away these pivotal moments in our human cycle. Whereas I think being present for a death or being present for a birth really changes the way you see things. So I've been present for 22 births and supported over 50 families postpartum, which I love that postpartum period. It's very vulnerable, very tender and challenging, extremely challenging, and dangerous in some ways too, because of the way that our medical system doesn't really support new moms. The first 6 weeks, there's no even doctor's appointment until 6 weeks postpartum for the new moms. And, there's so much that's happening during that time, including a wound the size of a paper plate inside of her body that could just hemorrhage at any time. But that's getting into the medical care system, and we won't spend time talking about how silly that is. But what is my I guess takeaway from being present at these births, and all of them different, even though the same outcome happens. A pregnant woman comes in, and a baby and a mom comes out. They say the mother is born along with the baby, and it's always different. It never looks the same, and there's a death in the birth. So when the baby comes out, they call it that's the birth. And then there's a second birth. It's the placenta. The placenta is an organ about this big that your body grows. In the first trimester, it's usually what makes us feel really like hell, because growing it is not fun. Growing the baby is way easier than growing the placenta. You grow an organ spontaneously that's going to then sustain the life of your baby for the for 280 days that it's inside of you. And then you discard the placenta, right? You take over, sometimes it's right away. They clamp the cord, which doesn't have as many benefits as letting the cord finish pulsating, but the placenta comes out, and the placenta ultimately gets disposed of, whether you consume it, you bury it, they donate them for medical research or cord banking. The placenta dies for the baby to be born. Also, the individual, like the mother as an individual woman, dies. That mother will no longer ever be a autonomous, or at least for 25 years or so, But no, really for the rest of her life, the DNA of her baby lives on in her body for the rest of her life. So as a single individual, that woman is changed forever. Even if your baby or child or adult child dies, you still have been forever changed and forever marked by that experience. So in the same way, I've learned a lot about death through birth. Not to mention, it's like the biggest sort of cosmic joke that the first thing you see as a baby when you come out is your mom's butthole. So like, it's like the spiral, the babies, their head moves through the pelvis and they spiral down. They don't just go straight out. They have to navigate this whole complex system. It's like a basket of muscles in the pelvic floor. And they're all different tensions and softness, and they have to navigate it. So the baby is not just like getting pooped out. The baby is actually working to find the best way, while the uterus is building like a fundus at the top of muscle, which then ejects the baby out. It's like your time at this all-inclusive resort is up. You gotta go. The baby's like, no, I don't want to go. I like it in here. But the uterus has other ideas. And, again, this is no control of any of us. We simulate control by inducing labor and using Pitocin, which can be wonderful when needed, and also can be harmful when not needed. Again, this goes back into the medical system, which we don't have time to get to today. But the human body is fantastically intelligent. And the baby, as it corkscrews out and kind of comes out and is born, it used to be thought that these babies, they didn't know anything, that they came out being kind of like wet rags or blobs. But they are so fantastically intelligent at that point that they already can recognize their mother's voice. They can recognize their mother's smell. They know what the nipple looks like. They can recognize contrasts of dark and light. They can army crawl towards the nipple. And they know how to choose what to look at and what to not look at. They know where to put their priorities, which is getting that milk in their mouth. And, using their muscles to suck, which is an incredibly challenging job of getting out the colostrum before the milk is formed, which also then creates the milk ducts around the nipple, then stores the milk, and will in 24 to 72 hours be the reservoirs that woman has for the rest of her breastfeeding journey until she's pregnant again. So the baby comes out like pretty clever, pretty wise, and is a team. It's a dyad, the mother-baby dyad. They're working together to create a sustainable existence for new life to be born. So nothing happens in a vacuum. Nothing happens alone. The same thing when you die. An honorable death, or a way that you would wish to die or you would want to die. I don't know anybody who wants to die alone, right? Alone, and it happens, and it's terribly sad. But it's everything that you would want for a beautiful birth, you would want for a beautiful death as well. And there are also death doulas who help handhold and navigate people through that process of death, which is the next level of mind-blowing, compassion that I only would aspire to being. So maybe your next guest should be a death doula.
Well, you just kind of rung my bell with that one, because when my Nana, my grandmother, was one of my best friends on the earth, and we all knew that her time was coming, and everyone else left and went home, and me and my dog Tucker stayed, because I just felt like this sense of I have to do something right now, and I don't even know what I have to do. And so I sat down, and she was unconscious the whole time I was there that day. I had been away in New York and was just like, Nana, please let me be there with you when it's your time, because she had had an accident, bumped her head, and then it was really rocky from that point forward. So I came home, I got the dog, and then went to Sacramento to go be with her. And everyone else left and like, hey, come with us, come with us. And I was like, no, I'm going to be here. And as soon as they left, it was like, all right, Nana, let's do this. And it was just like something within me was just like, I feel like I have to tell her like it's okay now. And so I sat with her and I just told her like, Nana, it's Sean. I'm here with you. I know you feel me. I just want you to know that it's okay. We're going to be okay. And we all love you tremendously. And it's okay to let go now, because I know you've kind of wanted this for a while. And I then sat with her with my computer and started writing about what it felt like to sit with someone who you love, who's been there for you almost like a mother for your whole life. And it was a very powerful experience, because every couple of minutes I would check her pulse. And then at one point I checked her pulse. I just had this feeling like, I think it happened. Check her pulse, and I'm like, is that a heartbeat? I can't even tell anymore. And I had the most human moment that I've ever really had, now that I think about it. This was like buried down in me. Thank you for bringing this up. Where I was just like, she just died right next to me. I was like sitting with her, talking to her, and then writing about what it feels like to do this. And so now I'm going to have to go look in my old hard drive for where that is, because this
Please
feels
do.
like the most important thing I could share right now. But it was this wild experience, because I just looked at her and was like, we did it. Like, I love you. I love you so much. And thank you. And then the nurses came in 15 minutes later on their rounds. It was hospice nurses at the place at that point. And I was like, hey, in the kitchen eating a banana, thinking, I'm not going to get anyone because they might take her away from me. And I'm not ready to say goodbye yet. I just did, but I'm not really ready for whatever comes next, because I don't know what comes next. And so I'm standing in the kitchen eating a banana like, wow, I'm in the room with a dead person right now. And my dog's just sleeping on the ground, just like, you're good. Don't worry. I'm here with you. And then the nurses came in and I was like, hey, you guys should go check her pulse. Like, it's gone. She's gone. And they're like, huh? What? Like, all of a sudden there was this really intense moment, and they're like, why are you being so casual about this? And to me, it just felt like the most natural thing in that moment. So they came back and she said some question that led me to believe that maybe she was still alive. And then there was this other moment where I was like, oh, she's still alive? And she's like, oh, no, she's dead. I was like, oh, okay. I guess now I have to call my dad and his brothers. And so then I had to do that. I had to call them and tell them that their mother had passed away. And that was really wild. And then they came, it was like 1:30 a.m. at that point, and they're like, hey, come with us. And I was like, I need to go back to San Francisco now. And they're like, you're crazy. So I drove to San Francisco that night with the dog. We reflected on that deeply. Over the next week or so, it all really came out and hit me, and the whole experience was like, whoa. And then a week after that week, so 2 weeks after she died, the dog died. And so he was there really with me to see me through that process. I learned so much through that. And then it was time to do it with him. And that was a whole story in itself. But, I never thought about a death doula thing, but that experience did change me, and it did give me a deep appreciation for life that I didn't quite understand before. So thank you for helping me see that, because I can't say I would want to do that in the way that you are a birth doula over and over again, but I can feel how that changed me. And that was kind of what I was alluding to with you, of like, how has that changed you? And I just feel like I had my own very human moment. So thank you, because that is just wild to remember.
What a beautiful story. Yeah, we're so fragile, honestly. Our ego would never stop to really contemplate just how fragile we are as humans. But this life is totally temporary, totally fragile. And, you know, we get only as much as we get. I mean, both of my parents, they've died at 69. The exact same sort of weeks before their 70th birthday, 10 years apart, which I always thought like healthy, totally healthy until like the end when they weren't. And it's not guaranteed, you know. You can save for your retirement, you can, you know, find somebody to spend the rest of your life with. You can, you know, set yourself up in a nice place where you're surrounded by people to take care of you. But really, what we have in our spectrum of control is so little we can actually control. And that's, again, you know, why birth is so humbling, because yesterday my partner was asking, so where's the baby going to be born? He's quite funny guy. Like, he asked the midwife, where's the baby going to be born? And we both laughed, because we're like, wherever the baby wants to be born, that's where you don't have any control. I don't know even birth doulas might end up in a cesarean section, like, and that's something that I have to realize. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know that this baby will even make it. My neighbors just had a baby recently, and their baby didn't make it. And I've never been at a birth where we lost an infant, but it happens, you know. And this is like unfathomable for most people to comprehend while still smiling, right? And talking about, like, you know, like, I might not make it through childbirth. Like, there are still circumstances where women die in childbirth. This is not something that just happens only in olden times or whatever. Like, there are very real life conditions that are completely out of my control, and I can do some things. You know, I can learn breathing techniques, and I can like, this is really the only thing. I can control the way that I perceive what's happening in my body. And actually that does a lot. Talking to some of my clients about their fears and what they're concerned about during the birth can really unlock another level of comfort with all of the variables that come into play. And so a lot of this, like, hypnobirthing and orgasmic birth, like, you take, like, we have a parasympathetic and a sympathetic nervous system, right? I always get them confused. The sympathetic nervous system is the one that regulates the calm, the happy, feeling tranquil. And the parasympathetic is like the fight or flight, alert, adrenaline. And parasympathetic nervous system can actually turn birth off. You can actually stop your labor by fear, by being afraid. Which, like, that's a metaphor for life if I've ever heard one. Like, you can turn off your contractions and stall your labor. Like, failure to progress oftentimes is failure to process your fear of the unknown, you know?
Yeah, and every now moment, as you described earlier in the show, is birthing another now moment. And hey, it's right now. Oh, hey, now it's right now. Oh, hey, now it's right now. You can't stop the river. You can't stop the flow of the river. But you can stop.
We try.
You can stop your flow.
Yeah.
In a sense, like, yeah, you're right. We try in ways, but you really...
The one key, you know, tool that we have to control this thing up here, which is a whole other podcast, is the breath. And so, yeah. So through breathing, you can actually, you have some sort of reins on the situation a little bit, right? Even though the animal itself is going to do what the animal does, the reins can kind of steer. You can slow down the horse or the monkey or whatever. You can slow it down. You can pull in the reins. You can take deep breaths. You can use your breath to conjure up visions of beautiful places, of settings where you feel safe. And that can oftentimes help labor progress. You add in oxytocin, which oxytocin actually in Greek means swift childbirth.
Whoa.
And that's the love hormone. That's the love chemical. The same way you make the babies, it's the same way that the babies are born. And so it's this dance of cocktail of hormones. And there's some women who can give birth where they feel no pain whatsoever. They feel intense pressure, but they've created a connotation in their mind that the pressure is not painful, because that triggers the parasympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight. If you trust the pressure and trust your body, which for women, we've historically been kind of told that there's something wrong with our bodies and that we're somehow dirty or not, trustworthy or reliable.
Which is bullshit.
Right. Well, I as in a male-dominated culture right now, something that I deal with a lot is like being a female in a male-dominated society. But yeah, it's very common for most women, even feminists, to have this preconceived notion that there's something wrong with their body, or that pain equals something's wrong. Like pain is like the first alarm to go off, right? There's something wrong in the body. But with your breath and with like trusting your body and trusting nature can be brutal. Nature can be savage.
Just go sit in a lightning storm and see how comfortable you feel.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, nature will consume you.
Yeah.
But also, nature has a rhythm, and it has patterns, and it can be predictable. And, I fully believe that you're never given more than you can handle, right? You're never given more than you can take. And so through these like sort of like hypnosis or ways of like brainwashing or like feeding these belief systems into our minds, which part of personal development, like this is what we're doing, right? We're trying to like reprogram these old beliefs that don't work for us anymore. To new ones that help us make life a little bit less like you can actually have an orgasm during birth. You can actually feel the most pleasure that you felt in your life. And that is an initiation many women don't get, because they don't know that that's even possible, because we see on television, right? Like, get this thing out of me.
Right.
Most women are terrified of birth. They go into it thinking like, give me the epidural as soon as possible, which is narcotics, just like which is a tool, and it is a wonderful tool when needed. But there are other options that with planning, you can actually set yourself up for an initiation of enormous proportions.
Wow. That programming that you just talked about like the male projections onto women, I find myself just having my mind blown because I've never heard of orgasmic birth before. And so in a way, I was kind of contributing to it because I just didn't even know better. And so you've completely blown my mind about that. But what a beautiful lesson in controlling your own mind. I don't even know if control is the right word anymore, of just learning how to operate your mind optimally. And we are all bound by polarity. And the same way, like something you said before made me think about the river analogy again, how in nature, the river flows, but it also crashes. And the river, you can see your reflection in it when it's still, and it doesn't show you much when it's rippling, except for the dancing of light. It could kill you when it's rushing down rapids. I mean, heck, I was in a whitewater rafting thing where the boat flipped when I was younger in a class 5 rapid, and that was an educational experience. But I have one more big question for you, and I'm really curious how a birth doula selects a birth doula. You called your midwife a midwife. Is there a difference between a midwife and a doula? And how do you select the person to do for you what you do for other people? Because that is fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually haven't chosen a birth doula yet. And the midwife was easy because there's really one here.
Okay.
Mexico is still a very, they love their pharmaceuticals. And so it's probably more common to go the way of a medically managed birth. There's two schools of thought, really. You have the school of like, you will deliver my baby to me, which is like the doctors will medically manage your birth. And all birth is birth. So this is really just different pillars in a spectrum. And then there is, I will give birth to my baby, and you'll be there to guide me and to take my vitals and to suggest things. But really, a good midwife, already the work has been done before the labor even starts. They oftentimes are just sitting in the corner kind of knitting, or there's not a whole lot for them to do because the birth person knows how to give birth to their baby. They've already been prepared for that moment. And of course, in the event that something changes, then they're there to help mitigate your options. But so you have the path of like an OBGYN, obstetrician, which they will medically manage your birth. And then you have the path of a midwife, which they will allow you to have body and autonomy and give you all of the information that you need. And really, midwife is kind of what we say in the doula world. A doula is waist up and a midwife is waist down. So the doula doesn't, we don't do any checks, or we don't catch babies, or we're not, taking vitals or anything like that. A doula is sort of like a coach, although I really don't like that term because we're not like in there like cheering them on. We're assisting with different positions that can help the baby to progress. We're in there offering sips of water, like just a little sip of water. Sometimes it's really hard to remember to drink water when your prefrontal cortex is kind of shut off during birth for a reason. Because if you think, you start thinking, like you get into the delivery room and the doctor start asking you, "What's your blood type?" You're like, that can actually stop birth. Like we're like cats. We need to go into a closet, shut the door, don't disturb me, and then I'll come out when my babies are born. So a doula really helps in education, helping to be an advocate for the client's desires and wishes when they're in the birth room. Also being there as support to the mother if the other birthing partner can't be there, the husband or the partner. And then helping to support during the transition to postpartum, so breastfeeding and maternal wellness after the birth, which there's a lot of healing that has to happen for the woman's body to go back to where it was pre-baby, which, the belly expands, all of the organs move out of the way, and then there's like a hole inside of you where the baby was. And that has to, through, uterine kind of contractions over time, the uterus shrinks back down, but then the organs are all kind of like helter-skelter. And so there's different ways that we can help them to heal postpartum and be there to help them process the experience as well as support them with newborn care. So that, the midwife does a little bit more of to become a midwife is an extremely long, like laborious. I mean, it's like becoming a doctor.
Wow.
Whereas to become a doula, you can become certified, over a couple of weekends. And, the best doulas, are obviously the seasoned ones who have had a lot of experience and can help you with your options. There's so many options in birth that it's nice to have somebody that knows what the spectrum of availability is, and then you can see where you fit and what works for you in that spectrum. And so far, I haven't chosen a doula, so I don't know who I will work with as a birth doula, and I'm not sure. Maybe my dog will be my doula, a dogla.
You could do it. I mean, I suppose you're kind of your own doula in a way, but is there any
it doesn't
kind
work
of
like that? I don't think.
just from the mental side of things and knowing what you know and the service that you provide? But I guess I'm curious, like, is there some sort of checklist that you have that you're like, these are the needs that I have for a doula, and you meet them and come work
you gotta
with
be
me.
comfortable naked with them.
Okay.
You gotta be
That's very human.
comfortable. Yeah. That's one of the signposts of labor progressing, is that you lose your modesty when you're in active labor. All of a sudden, you don't care who's in the room with your shirt off. If you still care if your shirt's on or off, you haven't progressed. You're still in the early stages. So
Prefrontal cortex.
yeah, it's a very personal experience, extremely personal. There's blood. I'm gonna make noises that I've never made before. There's gonna be moments where I'm gonna doubt myself, which is another sign of transition. When you say, I can't do this, that's like, what? It's time to push.
You have to.
Beautiful metaphor for life is like, right when you think you're like, I can't do this. There's no way I can do this. That's it. Like, it's not going to happen. And it's like, yep, you're complete. You're 10 centimeters, which like 10 centimeters is about the size of a sunflower. And your cervix is kind of like your nose. So your nose has to go from this to this. And that's the building of the fundus. All of this turns into a muscle at the top of that, which there's no other human function that does this in our body. Nothing else like transforms from one thing into becoming another thing. and it takes time. I mean, it takes sometimes 24, 48 hours for that to happen. It's not a quick, there's no like switch you can flip. It takes time. So it has to be somebody I'm really comfortable with.
Right. I also didn't know what you were talking about, the cervix transforming like that. That's utterly mind-blowing to me, because I'm obviously not a woman, and I think about how wild that experience must be, just to have like, this area of your body that has to expand so greatly to let another life form that you've been growing inside of you out.
Not only expand but transform into something else.
Right.
Like it's not like a shutter on a camera where it just like opens like this. So there's round muscles that go around the uterus, and then there's long muscles that go up and down, and it's like longitude and latitude. And when the cervix is opening, the cervix is kind of like this. It's closed right now, which we want it to be closed. It's good. Nice and tight in there. But when you're in the birth portal, one of the signals of birth is actually the baby lets the body know that it's time to be born. They found like a chemical is released when the lungs are fully formed. Okay. That signals to the body like, hey, like it's kind of like when the turkey's cooked, like ding, like the little thing pops up. And again, we have no idea. We have due dates, but again, most babies, I think 1% of babies are born on their due date.
Right.
It's really like a 5 to 6 week window that your body is going through this birth portal. And this cervix goes from being just like this, like a nose, to then like expanding moving up to the top of the cervix, becoming a muscle, and then pushing the baby out to eject it. So, yeah, if somebody could explain to me how that happened, and I was 36 years old or 34 years old before I even knew that my body could do this. Like, most women don't know how phenomenally cool their bodies are. And a lot of it, again, comes back to like, there's a little bit of like, I wish more women knew, like, even if you're not even going to have a baby, like, just know how fantastically cool your body is. And a lot of respect that men would have, I think, for the menstrual cycle, which is like, we were all born. You were born, like, every human here was a tiny baby inside of a uterus, inside of a woman at some point.
We're all grown up babies. We're kind of grown up, but we're all babies that just like had more time under their belts.
Yeah. So yeah, my deep respects for nature, how it designed these bodies, and the pelvis. Again, I could get into like all the different like anatomical parts of the female body that are designed specifically for this one biological function,
right?
which is considered a medical procedure, which is actually just like a biological function, just like sneezing and peeing and all of these other biological functions. It's just one that happens to take 3/4 of a year.
It's mind-blowing to think of, what you said as a portal, you describe as the birth portal. I mean, you are the key pillar of, you are a portal. Like, man comes along tired from breaking and smashing rocks against the mountain and come in and, plant the seed. And, it takes two to create this life, but you are the portal that then transports it into this earth. And where there were two, there were now three, or maybe more, depending on how many babies are in there. That's a scary thought. But like, oh my gosh, it's so wild to think. Just like being in your house with your partner, and then a year later, now there's three of you because you did what nature intended for you to do. And I salute you, and I'm excited that you get to go through this, because I know you and I know how much it means to you and how thoughtful you are. And it's your daughter, right?
Well, we asked the pendulum last night. We haven't had a sonogram to confirm the gender. We asked the pendulum last night, which is like why I love this midwife, is she's kind of witchy, and it suits me just fine. And the pendulum said 3 times unequivocally that it's a boy.
Whoa. Okay. Well,
so we need to get confirmation on that. As much as I love pendulums, I'm like, we need to go get an ultrasound, because I was very much picturing a girl.
I'm picturing a girl too. Maybe
let's see. Pendulums don't normally lie 3 times in a row, but let's see. Just like a kind of a final note on all of that, as you were saying, like a portal for life, which could be like the name of this episode. Portal for life.
I like that.
Where do they come from? Like, where was the baby before it was like a little mass of cells?
Like, do you know
the size
Dr.
of a
Courtney Hunt?
No.
Dr. Courtney Hunt has a book called Your Spark is Light. It's free online on our website. She's an OBGYN who is obsessed with making the healthiest babies possible through diet and lifestyle and whatnot. Fascinating book. And the whole thing, Your Spark is Light, is that when at the moment of fertilization of the egg, there is a flash of light, which is a zinc spark. And that's scientists have now captured that, like actual footage of it. And that is what she says is the soul entering into the vessel. And so that moment of conception, I know it's a hot topic, but don't care, is when the soul, the flash of light, that energy that we are, is introduced And so when the one becomes two, essentially, and
yeah, but where were they before that? Like,
I wonder the same thing.
Yeah, this is like the big question, right? And where do they go when they leave?
And that's what's beautiful. You walk around the earth. I know things, and I'm commanding my reality. And hey, where were you before you got here? That's a pretty good question, and I wonder the
and
same.
And on that note,
well, I will say that your youngling is a very lucky individual to have you as a mother and your partner as a father. I am lucky to have you as one of my favorite people on the earth.
Yeah.
You're such a wonderful friend, and I'm so happy to have had this conversation with you. I feel like I learned so much more than I ever could have imagined. I'm blessed to know you, Joanna, and I'm wondering if you have any parting advice for me and for our listeners, for juice. What you got for me? Give me some juice. Tell me what's important that I need to know.
There's nothing that you need to know. You already know everything. That your body already knows everything. You already have all the truth and the knowledge that you need. And take a break. Slow down. Sink it all in. Soak in the juices. Let them marinate.
Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Always. I
agree. Joanna, I love you.
Squeezes to you. Thank you, Sean. And for people who are interested in my work, my website is bringharmonyhome.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, Bring Harmony Home.
Bring Harmony Home. We'll put up a marquee on here. We'll add all your links to YouTube and Substack and all that. Thank you so much. You are the best.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
Oh, I mean to ask, can I ask you later on after you get through this experience of childbirth, will you come back and talk to us about what your experience was like? I know that's...
Yeah, well, I would be honored to.
Cool. I
mean, then we can talk about babies, and that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Arguably more interesting, I would say, but they're both pretty cool.
Been
Can't have one without the other.
Right. All right. Well, thank you, Joanna.
Okay. Thank you, Sean.
You're the best.
Thank you for listening, all of you out there.
Have a great day.
Thanks.
Hi, Juice. So there you have it, my friends. What did you think of Joanna? Isn't she wonderful? Wow. That conversation left me speechless. It was an honor and a pleasure to go back through it again today for the second time and get to hear it, but to live it. What an experience. I had no idea how deep we were going to go. I had no idea what I was going to learn about the human body, and I'm really left without a whole lot to say except for thank you, because that was just a life-changing experience. I have to say, I feel different after that conversation, and I'm not kidding you. It's wild. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you to all of our listeners, to everybody who has subscribed to the YouTube channel. Thank you for your likes and comments and subscriptions and all the standard YouTube stuff. It really does make a difference, and every little click counts. And so, I ask for subscriptions, ask for your time, and I really, really, truly appreciate you for being here with me. So thank you. My name is Hue-Man. My dog Juice is over there in the window. This is a candle with some Palo Santo in the bottom, South Dakota beeswax, and a little bit of rosemary too. And I'm carrying it with me. It's my Easter candle. I don't know why I'm carrying it with me. I don't know why I brought it to share with you, but it felt right. So I thank you for being here with us today. I wish you well. I had a beautiful dinner, and I'm just feeling peaceful. I wish you the same, and I'll talk to you soon. Be well.
Peace.